sold the house I built with my own hands because my wife told me she couldn't breathe in it anymore. She said the walls felt too tight, the street too noisy, the life we built together too small. And I believed her. Because when someone you've loved for over a decade looks at you with tired eyes and says, "Can we start over?" you don't question the cracks. You look for new bricks. My name's Drew. I'm 43. I run a small contracting business in a town where everybody knows everybody. I built homes for people who grew up with me, fixed pipes for teachers who taught my kids, and waved at the same neighbors every morning for 15 years. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't rich. But I was solid. I was steady. I thought, safe. And then there was Melissa. She was smart, sharp, knew how to plan 5 steps ahead of any decision. She paid the bills, picked the paint colors, scheduled the trips, and controlled the tempo of our marriage with a smile that made you think everything was under control. So when she started talking about selling the house, I didn't resist for long. I didn't want to move. That place was mine. Every nail, every tile, every inch of it. But love, when it's real, makes you compromise. So I let go of what I built, trusting that I was building something better. We sold it fast. Below value, but smooth. She said that was smart. We moved into a rental to clear our heads before finding the next step. I still remember unpacking boxes while she hummed in the kitchen like nothing had changed. And then, barely 2 months later, I got served. Divorce papers. No warning. No fight. No, let's try to fix this. Just an envelope on a Tuesday afternoon and a note that said, "This is what I need. Please don't make this harder." I sat on the porch of that rental, reading it over and over, thinking maybe it was a mistake, that maybe there'd be a knock on the door and she'd say it was all a misunderstanding. But that knock never came. What did come was something worse. 3 days later, I saw her, Melissa, hand in hand with a man I didn't recognize, smiling like the weight of the world had finally lifted. They weren't hiding. They weren't pretending. They walked past me, right down the block, and turned into the driveway of the house we never even toured. The one that went on the market a week before ours sold. The one she said was too close. She didn't just leave me. She positioned me. She staged a new life right next to mine, built on the ashes of the one she convinced me to burn down. But what she forgot is that I'm a builder, and builders know how to start again. This time, I wasn't building for us. I was building for the truth, and I was going to do it from next door. Sometimes, betrayal doesn't sound like screaming. It whispers in sweet requests, dressed up as love, until you've sold your foundation and they walk away with the keys. If you've ever been blindsided by someone you trusted, leave a comment. And subscribe. I move in next door and start taking back what she thought I'd never see coming. When I bought the house next door, I didn't tell anyone. Not my friends. Not my crew. Not even my mother, who still thought I was living out of the rental while figuring things out. I closed quietly, paid in cash, kept the name on the title under an LLC I'd registered years ago for a side project. I didn't want fanfare. I wanted position. And this house? It gave me the perfect view. From my kitchen window, I could see her front door. From the upstairs bedroom, I could see into the backyard we once dreamed of having. Now redone with a modern patio set and a grill I knew neither of them knew how to use properly. I wasn't stalking. I wasn't obsessed. I was observing, watching how fast someone can rewrite history when they think the only witness is gone. She didn't recognize the truck I started driving. A beat-up blue Ford, the first kept for site work. She didn't look twice when she passed me at the mailbox. She had erased me in her mind so completely that she didn't even see me when I was 10 feet away, which was perfect, because the thing about people who lie is, they like to perform, and if you give them just enough space, they'll do it out loud. I kept to myself, spent my days renovating the inside, nights sitting on the porch, sipping black coffee, watching her come and go, sometimes with the new guy, sometimes alone, sometimes with friends who'd once smiled at me like I was part of the family. I didn't wave. I didn't confront. I didn't even make eye contact. I let the silence make her curious. And it worked. One afternoon, about a week after I moved in, she walked over. Casual. Hair pulled back. That fake smile she always used when she was trying to control the tone of a conversation. "I heard someone moved in," she said. "Didn't realize it was you." I just nodded. She shifted awkwardly. "Why here?" I sipped my coffee. "It's a nice neighborhood." She didn't like that. Her jaw tightened for half a second, then softened again like she was rehearsing. "You okay?" she asked. I looked at her, really looked, at the woman who convinced me to sell my home, who played the long game with a straight face, who orchestrated a divorce like a business transaction. Now standing 5 feet away, unsure of what game I was playing. I nodded. Never better. And I meant it. Because what she didn't know was that I'd already started talking to a real estate agent about who sold her the house, that I'd already made friends with the neighbor on the other side, who told me exactly when her boyfriend started showing up, that I'd quietly pulled records and timelines, and everything was lining up to show a very clear pattern of fraud, manipulation, and premeditated deceit. She thought she fooled me, but I was building a case. From next door. One brick of truth at a time. Some people are smart when they cheat. Melissa was meticulous. She cleaned her digital trail like she cleaned our countertops. Spotless at first glance. No texts, no emails, no receipts left behind. But the thing about planning too carefully is that you get overconfident. And overconfidence always leaves a fingerprint. I found hers in an old shared cloud folder. It wasn't even hidden. Just sitting in our joint Google Drive. One of those relics of a marriage built on trust that she never thought to unlink. We used to upload things there: budgets, trip plans, moving documents, house remodel blueprints. I hadn't opened it in months. But now I did. And what I found cracked her whole story wide open. There it was. A scanned lease agreement for the house she now lived in. Dated 5 weeks before she ever brought up selling ours. Signed. Time-stamped. Her name at the bottom. Clear as day. She had already secured the house before the idea of starting fresh even left her mouth. Before the sale of ours. Before the rental. Before the lie became a plan. I stared at it for a long time, and in that moment, everything snapped into place. The sudden urgency to sell, the lowball offer she insisted we accept, her strange calm through the process, and the way she picked the rental that was only temporary. It wasn't just betrayal. It was premeditated theft. She manipulated the sale. Tricked me into thinking it was mutual. Made sure I signed everything with a smile, while she stood one step ahead, orchestrating her exit like it was a business deal. And she almost got away with it. Almost. But now I had the crack in her timeline. And I knew exactly what to do with it. I called my lawyer, not for revenge, but for clarity. I wanted to know what my rights were. What could be reversed? What could be proven? And to my surprise, he didn't hesitate. If she encouraged you to sell the house under false pretenses while already securing a new property for herself, he said, we're no longer talking about a messy divorce. We're talking about intentional financial deception. Possibly fraud. That word changed everything. Fraud. I wasn't just the ex-husband anymore. I was the victim of a calculated scheme. And now, I had proof. The woman who thought she buried her tracks had left a receipt in plain sight. And now all I had to do was build the rest of the case. Quietly, carefully, from right next door. She was watering her roses when I walked over. It was early evening, warm but not too hot. The kind of air that holds tension like a secret. She looked up, surprised but not alarmed. After all, I was just the guy next door, her ex, the man she thought she outplayed. She even smiled like this was going to be a casual conversation. "Hey," she said, wiping her hands on her jeans. I didn't smile back. I handed her the single sheet of paper I'd printed that morning. No folder. No explanation. Just the page. She took it, glanced at it, and her face changed. It was the lease. The one she signed for this house. 5 weeks before she told me we needed to move on. Her eyes scanned the date, then looked up at me, then down again. She didn't say anything, because there was nothing to say. I let the silence stretch just long enough for the weight of it to land, on her face, her posture, her carefully rehearsed version of how this all just happened. I stepped back, hands in my pockets, calm and steady. "I'm not here to fight," I said. I just want you to know I know. Still, she didn't speak. Not denial. Not apology. Just stillness like a cornered player in a game they thought they'd already won. And in that moment, something shifted. She wasn't in control anymore. She realized that everything she built on top of that lie, the new house, the new man, the clean exit, was cracked. Because I now held the one thing she couldn't spin or soften. Proof that it was never about starting over. It was about leaving me behind with nothing. But now, she understood that I wasn't the man she sold out. I was the man who had receipts. And I was only getting started. I turned and walked away without another word. Because the damage was already done. Not by me but by her. All I did was bring it to the surface. And when someone's mask starts to crack, they panic. The next day she called me twice. I didn't answer. That same afternoon, I got a call from her lawyer. A polite, overly professional voice asking if I'd be open to a calm resolution. That's when I knew she was scared. She didn't know how much more I had. And the truth was, neither did I. But I was going to find out. After I walked away from her with that lease in her hand, something shifted. Not just in her expression, not just in how she looked at me, but in the air between us. For the first time, she knew I wasn't a victim. I wasn't broken. I was watching quietly, and more importantly, I was learning. But I wasn't done. Because one document doesn't tell the whole story. And if there's one thing I've learned from years of building homes and signing contracts, it's this: paper never lies. So I followed the trail, every document, every date, every decision she made that I once trusted without question. I requested the closing documents from the sale of our house. I compared signatures, timestamps, emails. I pulled the emails we exchanged with our real estate agent, then asked to see messages I was never copied on. And with a polite nudge, a little professional curiosity, and the help of someone on the inside who still respected me, I got them. What I found made my chest tighten. She'd been working with the buyers before we even listed. She'd negotiated terms privately. She'd undercut the market value. And she'd pocketed a side deal, disguised as staging costs and renovation credits, to make it look clean. But it wasn't. It was manipulation on paper. And if I hadn't gone looking, it would have vanished like smoke. But now it was mine. Proof that she'd orchestrated the entire thing, not just behind my back, but with full intent to benefit financially from my ignorance. And the worst part? She used my own trust to make it happen. She knew I wouldn't question her. She counted on it. And that's what hurt the most. Not the money, not even the betrayal, but realizing that the woman I once built a future with had calculated my silence into her plan. But that's the thing about building. Even if someone knocks it all down, when you know how the structure works, you know how to rebuild stronger. And this time, I wasn't just rebuilding. I was preparing to hold her accountable. I brought everything to my lawyer. He looked at the documents, then looked at me, and his words were calm, but loaded. This isn't just unethical, he said. This might be criminal. Fraud, misrepresentation, real estate misconduct. If I filed, it wouldn't just be a counterclaim in a divorce. It would become something bigger. And suddenly, Melissa's perfect plan wasn't so perfect anymore. Because when you think you've silenced someone, you forget quiet doesn't mean weak. Quiet often means calculated. And I had calculated everything. I didn't announce it. No dramatic confrontation. No threats. No shouting matches across the lawn. I just walked into my lawyer's office one quiet Monday morning, slid the folder across his desk, and said, "Let's do it." Within 48 hours, the documents were filed. And within 72, Melissa was officially notified that the man she thought she outmaneuvered was now pursuing her for fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and real estate misrepresentation. All backed by evidence she never expected me to find. Her silence after that was deafening. She didn't come knocking. Didn't send one of her polished little texts. No calls. Nothing. And I knew why. Because the moment the letter arrived from the court, she realized her carefully choreographed exit had officially turned into a legal disaster. But I didn't do this out of revenge. I did it because people like her count on silence. They count on the idea that being civil means being passive. That if they smile through the paperwork and soften the lies with phrases like, "It's just better this way," you'll go quietly. That you'll lick your wounds and move on while they decorate a life built on manipulation. But I wasn't interested in revenge. I was interested in the truth. And now that truth had a file number. The next few weeks moved fast. Her lawyer called mine twice, 3 times, then daily. Suddenly, they wanted to discuss settlement. They wanted to avoid escalation. They wanted everything they'd never offered me when they thought they were in control. And while they scrambled, I stayed quiet, because the power in knowing the truth isn't in how loud you say it. It's in how precisely you use it. I knew the documents were solid. I knew the dates lined up. I knew the not-so-subtle side payments tucked into the sale could no longer be disguised. And I knew this wasn't just a personal betrayal anymore. It was a legal one. The courts agreed. She was given a deadline to respond formally. A deadline to provide her own documentation. A deadline to explain how she acquired the property next door while representing the sale of our home as mutual, urgent, and financially fair. I wasn't in the room when she read the filing, but I can tell you exactly what it felt like. It felt like breath returning to a body that had been holding it for months. Not because I wanted to see her hurt, but because I finally saw her plan collapse under the weight of her own decisions. She thought I was done. She thought I was broken. She thought I moved next door out of desperation. But I didn't move to watch her win. I moved to remind myself who I really am. And now so did she. When people like Melissa lose control of the story, they don't break all at once. They unravel slowly, one piece of their polished image at a time. It started with whispers. Mutual friends stopped calling me to ask what had happened. Instead, they started calling to tell me what they'd heard. That Melissa had left out a few details. That her new boyfriend wasn't just someone she met after the divorce. That maybe things weren't as simple as she made them seem. Then came the community fallout. The same neighbors who waved at her every morning now avoided eye contact. Clients we once shared asked why she was suddenly off social media. She had built a version of herself so carefully crafted, graceful, clean. Just a woman trying to move on from a toxic marriage. And now that version was cracking. Because I never raised my voice. I never made a scene. I never told anyone what she did. The truth simply started speaking for itself. That's the thing about calculated betrayal. It always looks clean until you flip the script. And once I filed the legal claim, the script flipped fast. Her boyfriend stopped showing up. Her tone shifted. The confidence she once wore like armor turned to hesitation. Meanwhile, I felt lighter. Not because she was hurting, but because I wasn't carrying the weight anymore. I stopped waking up wondering what I missed. I stopped replaying old conversations trying to hear the lie. I stopped blaming myself for trusting the wrong person. Because now I saw it clearly. She didn't break me. She freed me. She forced me to rebuild everything from the ground up. And in doing so, I found pieces of myself I didn't even realize I'd lost. And when her lawyer called again, this time with a full settlement offer. No fight, no negotiation, just surrender. I didn't gloat. I just said, send it in writing. Because justice doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes, it comes in quiet signatures, in clean exits, in the sound of your front door closing behind you with peace instead of pain. And that's what I had now. Peace. Not because I won, but because I didn't let her win the version of me that she counted on staying broken. The funny thing about starting over is that it rarely looks like a victory. It doesn't come with confetti or applause. It comes with slow mornings and quiet nights. With the sound of your own breath when the world finally stops spinning. It comes with stillness, the kind that used to feel like loneliness but now feels like peace. When the settlement finalized, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt settled. She gave up the claim to the sale, returned the side money she tried to hide, signed off on the legal documents without a fight. And with that, she was gone. Not just from my life, but from the story she once tried to control. Could have moved away, bought a house across town, started fresh in a place without memories. But I didn't. I stayed. In the same neighborhood, on the same street, in the house next door. Not because I was holding on to anything, but because I finally didn't need to run. You see, when someone betrays you that deeply, they hope you'll become a ghost of yourself. They hope you'll shrink, disappear, doubt every instinct you ever had. But if you survive it, if you stay grounded through the unraveling, you don't just come back. You rebuild on bedrock. The house I live in now, I fixed it up myself. No blueprints, no partners, no second opinions. I chose the paint colors. I laid the floors. I made it mine, not because I had to, but because I could. Because this time, no one was taking it from me. Not in paperwork. Not in promises. Not in silence. And now, when I sit on my porch with coffee in hand and a sunrise that doesn't feel heavy, I think about what I lost and what I gained. I lost the version of myself that needed someone else to feel whole. But I gained something far more powerful. The ability to build again, with eyes open, with a clear heart, and with a spine made of every moment I stayed quiet when I could have screamed. That's what freedom feels like. Not revenge. Not justice. But becoming so full of your own truth that no one else's life fits inside you anymore. They thought they took everything. But what they left behind was enough for me to build something better. If the story touched something in you, leave a comment. And if you've ever rebuilt after betrayal, subscribe. Because sometimes the real victory isn't in what you prove to them. It's in what you reclaim for yourself.